Hi, I'm Claude,
And Nedso, and you're listening to FamTalks.
where we talk about faith through apologetics and share it with you as our ministry. We hope to encourage families to talk about big questions on faith to counter the worldview from a word view.
Yes, it's right. And today we have one such question, a very important question. And that question is, how is the world shaping the next generation? If you find this question interesting, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so that you would be notified for whenever we upload next.
That's a very relevant question, my son, because whatever we're doing right now would definitely impact the next generation.
Mm-hmm.
So when we say, how is the world shaping the next generation right now? What do we mean actually by shape?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think when we say shaping the next generation, the easiest way to kind of visualize that is that what we do now influences the next generation. It influences how they think, how they act, how they're supposed to feel, how they
Mm,
respond in certain situations, right? Everything that we do impacts the people who look onto us, right? So I hope that as our viewers, as you listen to us, we're impacting you, right? We're in a sense shaping the way that you think about certain topics. And that's the same way that that's the same thing that the world is doing right now. It influences the next
mm,
generation. It influences the way they think. And as I said a while
mhm.
ago, the way they act, respond, etc., etc.
Right. And I think that's something very clear, my son. But the challenge is sometimes we think that this should be like overt behaviors or direct messaging. This is how you should think. But actually how the world is now shaping the next generation can be quite subtle. It may
Mm-hmm.
appear like feel good or something positive or something good like music per se or something like really good slogan focusing on the self. You don't exactly see the danger side, but
Mm-hmm.
it's actually dangerous. Maybe we could give examples to that, my son.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um, Well, if you talk about subtle things that the world tells us, I think we already talked about some of those things, like following your heart, right? Living
Mm,
out your truth. All
true.
of those things seem subtle, seems good, but if you apply them in the wrong context, following the wrong ideologies that back it up, then it's going to be a dangerous thought. Then it's going to be something that's not just harmless, but it could be destructive to not just yourself, but other people as well.
That's true. That's a very good example. Another would be through music. Music is
Mm-hmm.
very, very powerful to communicate certain ideologies. And I noticed just comparing the current genre right now, compared maybe my son to my generation,
Mm-hmm.
where music are more, I would say, clear in terms of what it's trying to convey. And if I'm going to look at some of the music right now, it doesn't really make sense. Like it's focused on the pleasure, what brings pleasure to man. Right now the music are very subtle about relationships, about having sex, that this is something that's natural and something that, okay, it happened and then done, and then you move on to the next relationship. Like there's no value to that. But this is sex in the context of what the Bible says and how the Lord sees it. It's holy and it's something that should be within the matrimony of marriage because it is holy. But the
Mm-hmm.
way the world is shaping it is totally you just respond to your natural pleasure. And this is very evident in the music right now.
Mm-hmm. If I may add, Mom, I think that even long ago there were many, let's say, graphic kinds of
Mm,
music. Although I would believe that there are a lot now, I'm not sure if there are more, but I do know that there does exist those kinds of music. Um, Although I'm sure that those kinds of music isn't exclusive just to this generation. But you
Right.
bring up a very good point, Mom, that these the kind of music that a person listens to definitely influences the way they think. That if you are to listen to lots of songs that would treat relationships as just a passing of life, just something that
Mm.
goes on, just a passing of motions, then definitely you're going to share the same kind of thinking. It may not be right away, but if you continue to listen to it, if you continue to um, allow yourself to not really rebuke those kinds of ideas, then those things will continue to stick in your mind. It's going to ring in your head, and eventually you're going to think that it's okay. You might
Right.
not think that it's the best, but you wouldn't be entirely opposed to the idea. And I think
That's
that's
true.
what's dangerous. And as you said, music is very subtle. It may have a catchy beat, but it may
Mm.
have dangerous lyrics. And
Right.
that's what's dangerous about music itself. But that kind of method, Mom, I believe it's not exclusive to music in the way it's that in the things that you read. Me personally, there's a lot of comics that I read, Korean comics that I read, and there are definitely a lot of hidden values that I could see from the author. There are lots of kinds of bullying. Of course, in the comic,
Mm.
it shows that bullying is bad, right? But oftentimes it shows that the student gets revenge on their bullies. He takes justice into his own hands, which that in itself is not good. Although it does expose a problem, it does expose that there is bullying in that context. But taking justice in your own hands, that's not good, right? And there are a lot more examples that I could give out, but we would run out of time. But in the kinds of music that you read, in the media that you read, music you listen to, sorry, the comics that you read, books that you read, it could also be found in the videos that you watch.
Mm.
There are a lot of hidden what do you call this, hidden ideologies being passed down onto you, and that's very dangerous if you're not keeping check on what those things are trying to teach you, what those things are telling to you.
Right. That's a very good point, my son. I think it's good that you mentioned that music does not just influence today's generation, but even previous generation. And I think that has constantly changed the landscape of how we think and even the music that we enjoy. And you're also correct, the things that we read could also impart certain values and influence the way we think. That's very important. That's why I'm very intentional with the books I am reading, you know that. And I would
Mm-hmm.
also encourage you and your sister to really read with me, right? If
Mm-hmm.
there are books that I would, if there's something that maybe my son, something that I would say it's my, um, in a way like luho. How would we, how would we say that in our, for our other viewers? Because some would really spend so much for bags or shoes or clothes, but for me, my main joy would really to buy books because
Mm-hmm.
I know that even I enjoy it right now, and for sure, even you and Levy would also enjoy it, and maybe right now, or even when the right time comes, when you
Mm-hmm.
like the things that I read. So definitely, the things that we read online or in hard copy would definitely impact the way we think. That's why we have to be mindful of the authors. Who are these people that we're following, or what are they actually stand for? Because definitely it will also shape the way they write their books, and
Mm-hmm.
that ideology will also be passed on to you.
Mm-hmm.
Aside from books, my son, I think there are so many agendas now that are communicated in other ways.
Mhm.
Very interesting that I didn't know there is actually a transgender visibility day
Mm.
in
Mhm.
that is declared 2 years ago, but it was only officially declared this year, 2024. Is that correct?
I think according to the article we went through, Mom, it existed since 2009, and then it was
Mm,
officially declared by Joe Biden in 2022, I believe.
right. So that's quite
Mhm.
interesting that um if there is such thing that we dedicate a day for a specific maybe ideology or something that we believe in, it also sends a clear message of what today's generation value,
Mhm.
right? So um for me, I value everyone. If that's the case, we should have a visibility day for all people. You know, I
Mhm.
don't know how we're going to do that, but I think everyone deserves to be seen,
Mhm.
right? So by putting someone or a certain group in a pedestal that there is this is their visibility day, we're actually drawing so much attention to this, and we're sending a specific message. I'm not really sure what's the heart behind this specific day for this specific group. But what I'm saying is that if we're declaring such thing as like a national day or a specific day, then we're sending a message. This is something that we value. And it's good to ask, is this something that we want the next generation to remember? Right? Because
Mhm.
this would totally shape how they think in the next generation.
Mhm. Yeah, and yeah, I agree that when you are putting a pedestal on something, it brings much attention, right? So for this transgender or trans visibility day, right, it brings so much attention to them. And I'm sure that the reason why it started was because they were,
Mm.
in a sense, they were oppressed, in a sense they were the minority, in a sense they were the ones that were overlooked, right? I
Mm.
guess it's similar to the kind of campaign where it was the Black Lives Matter campaign, right? All lives matter, I would agree, but that also undermines the reason for the Black Lives Matter campaign. That it was there because, yes, all lives matter, but it would seem that the Black lives weren't being treated as it should be.
Mm.
Although there's also the controversy of Black Lives Matter being plastered onto other things, and instead of putting, and it lost its meaning. All right, it lost its meaning.
Mm.
But I think that that's a bit, that kind of context is a little bit different from the trans visibility day, right? Because I believe that there's already a whole month that they have dedicated for themselves, for the Pride Month, which is supposedly every June, right? And in there, I believe the trans is also part of the LGBTQ plus for the T part. And with that, right, with all that, it seems like they're being put on a higher pedestal, which I personally find confusing. But again, the entire point of this or mentioning this, right, is that, or is the question, do we really want the next generation to value these kinds of things? Because it has been sanctioned by the government itself. It was brought by the government, it was put into light by the government.
Mm.
And do we want the next generation to just have the same kind of values as the government? And I think that's very dangerous. That if we don't really take a look at these events that are happening, we just pass by it. Oh, today is Trans Visibility Day. Okay. You might not care about it, but you're also not going to, s- for example, just speak out against it because it's wrong, right?
Right.
Having someone believe that they are a gender that they are not, or believing that they are a sex that they are not, that is entirely wrong. There is biological evidences that you are a man or that you are a woman. There are historical evidences that you are a man, that you are a woman. right? And to deny these things flat out just because you feel that way, just because you feel something, there's something severely wrong there, right? And these kinds of distortions, these kinds of values that we have, it's not exclusive only to the trans, okay? It's not only exclusive only to the pushing of the LGBTQ agendas. We can see this many times as well in how texts are being altered, how words are changing,
Mm.
right? Mom, I mentioned a while ago Pride Month, right? Pride before usually it meant that you were haughty, you were arrogant, and that's not
Mm.
something that you would usually put into a good person, right? Yes, there are some things that you should have some pride, that you should be have some kind of confidence in yourself. That's what pride is in a sense. But usually when we say that you are prideful, you have too much of that for yourself. You have too
Mm.
much confidence. You're too haughty. You're too arrogant. But how is pride being used today? Right? Pride month, right? You are who you are because that's how you feel. You are right to be who you are.
Mm.
And if I may, it's kind of arrogant to say that. And I think that most of them may not agree. Some of them might agree that, yes, it is arrogant, but that's who they are. And do we really want the next generation to be valuing that?
Mm. Right.
Valuing arrogance, valuing that they're right, valuing that their feelings matter more than the biological evidences, historical evidences of their own bodies.
Right. You hit the nail there in terms of just the context right now. Like there are given words that meant otherwise are given another context or another meaning. For example, with specifically with the word pride, now it's being used in the sense like standing up for this particular ideology,
Mhm,
and there are a lot other words that are being used in a different context. And all of these things are, I think, the current challenges of today's generation. The question is, would you just accept this, or would you think critically about it?
mhm,
So, a good example would be how you frame our uh, our biological makeup. That clearly you're male, you're female, you're a man, you're a woman. The mere fact, I love Dr. Frank Turek when he said that transgender ideology, the mere fact that you're saying you're transitioning to another gender means you clearly acknowledge that you are this gender transitioning to this other gender, right? You're transitioning. So it means that you know for a fact that biologically you are male or female and you are going to transition to another gender. And there are just so many challenges for today's generation that I hope they just do not accept all of these things, but they test the ideology, test the statement, test what's being presented to them, think critically about it. Are there facts behind it? Is this focus more on feelings, focus more on pleasing the other person or making them feel good about it? And think about how it will impact the next generation.
mhm,
Because just reflecting all of this things, for example, LGBTQ, I have nothing against it, but just imagine the impact, my son. If everyone embraces this ideology,
mhm,
humanity will die. Humanity will die. That's the impact of this ideology. But is this being explicitly stated? Is it being explicitly presented to people or to young people or even to children if they decide to move towards this direction? Clearly, it's not God's design. God's design from the very beginning is for man and woman. The time of Adam and Eve is to become fruitful, to multiply, to procreate, to fill the earth. And this goes against the natural design of the Lord. So when we're presented about these things, either through music, slogans like follow your heart, books that we read, or articles that we read, or comic books that we read, discern, think, and compare what the word says. The mere fact that it's all over everything, internet, the things that we get to encounter, then all the more that we have to think critically about it,
Mm.
right?
Yeah, and mom, I think just to kind of wrap up our topic for today, we asked the question, how does the world shape the next generation? And I think the answer to that is by bombarding them with so many things at once, so that they'd have no time to think, so that they have no time to respond. That the easiest way to sift through all of these informations is to accept it, right? And I think, as you said, to be able to really counter that, it's to discern, it's to be rational, it's to think about those things, not just blindly accept them, not just instantly listen to it, but to take the time to sit down and think, what is this trying to tell me?
Amen to that, my
Yeah.
son. So, with that, I think we can close for now and we can say bye for now.
And if you enjoyed this topic, how about you share it with a friend so that they may also learn about how the world shapes the next generation?